Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning into News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi and you're watching this special broadcast of top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region. We have an expansive stories for all the viewers here to cover. Like always, this is your one-stop shop to understand what the news pulse of the day essentially looks like. We will shift our focus to the 60th day. It is almost 2 months of that West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. Is Israel seriously planning to pump in waters into those tunnel shafts to really push out and flood the Hamas systems? This even as Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey's president, meeting the Islamic nations at that committee, has said that Netanyahu, post the war, is going to be tried like a war criminal. All the updates from that war-torn front, we're going to be covering that. Vis-a-vis the other international top developments, we're going to shift our focus to United States, where an ambassador, he's been tried for espionage charges. And apart from that, Indonesian volcano that erupted, a lot of hikers inside the area, they're still fear-trapped or missing. Apart from that, several other climate focus stories, because climate change, here at News 9 Live, we make it a point to talk about all the global climate and global warming issues as well. That's going to be our focus. But first and foremost, let's shift our focus to what's happening back at home. The East Coast, it's preparing for the severe cyclonic storm Michong. Many also call it Migjom, which is likely to make a landfall near Bapatla today. And it's going to have a maximum sustained wind speed of about 90 to 100 kilometers per hour, which could also gust up to 110 kilometers per hour. What you're looking at on your screens are visuals coming across from Tamil Nadu, from Andhra Pradesh, from parts in Pondicherry. Right now, rescue operations that are being carried out in various affected areas in Tirupati, even as we speak. Now, the system, the severe cyclonic Bay of Bengal cyclone system, is likely to move nearly northwards, parallel and close to South Andhra Pradesh coast, and cross South Andhra Pradesh's coast between Nellore and Machilipatnam. Tamil Nadu has declared a public holiday in 4 districts. 8 districts of Andhra Pradesh are also reeling under hefty IMD alerts. Over 10,000 people have been evacuated to about 250 odd relief camps in 8 locations as part of precautionary measures across various states. Over 21 teams of the National Disaster Relief Force have been stationed across these states, these affected regions being primarily Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Puducherry. Now, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, who was also monitoring the situation from these war control rooms, deputed as many as 13 ministers to also coordinate the rescue and relief operations. About 350 boats were mobilized to evacuate people from these inundated areas. And from what you can tell on your screens, be it Nellore, be it Tirupati, be it Chennai, boats have had to make their ways inside city suburbs, inside alleyways to help people in the rescue operations. Over 700 personnel from the NDRF, from the state disaster relief forces, the local police authorities and the fire tenders, rescue departments, they've all been tasked with rescuing people in these inundated areas. About 250 of these workers were involved in rescue operations in Chennai alone, ladies and gentlemen. Even as we're waiting for the cyclone to make its landfall and all the preparations are being done, several trees have been uprooted, power outages have been reported, schools have been shut. Traffic was completely thrown out of gear ever since Chennai recorded 500 to 400 millimeter rainfall since Sunday, which many are saying is even greater than the 2015 deluge that completely threw life out of gear in the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu. Vehicles were seen drifting away, people were seen wading through chest-deep water, and several power outages as well, like just the one that you see, a power line that's completely down in Nellore. From Nellore, you take a look at what's happening in Chennai. Pictures on your screens again. SDRF, the NDRF in those fluorescent orange jackets of theirs, carrying out these rescue operations. Take a look at that. Many visuals that are doing rounds on social media as well about how crocodiles and alligators have also made their way. But in the times of artificial intelligence and deep fakes, it's important that we corroborate those kind of visuals before we throw them up for public consumption. Meanwhile, these boats that you can see carrying out rescue operations, bringing people from their homes in these low-lying and affected areas, which, by the way, are plentiful in the eastern coast of the Indian subcontinent. At the moment, between 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., 12:30 to 1:30 p.m., the Met Department can't specifically put a finger on the exact time when the cyclone Migjom is going to make its landfall. Now, Migjom, it takes its word from the Myanmarese word, which means strength and resilience. And it's not the first time that the eastern coast, be it Tamil Nadu, be it Andhra Pradesh, be it Puducherry, are preparing for something like this. Odisha also in that list. We've all seen All kinds of cyclones hit the eastern coast. A lot of damage to life and property, to livestock as well. Chief ministers tend to take helicopter rides, taking stock of the situation via the aerial route. Every time a cyclone or an extreme weather event related to water bodies comes and hits this eastern coast. But at this point in time, people are saying that this is unprecedented. Just a normal rains was more than the 2015 deluge that Tamil Nadu saw. The NDRF and SDRF with the kind of teams and people that they're deployed on the ground right now at the moment, it is full of anxiety. Any minute now, during the course of the afternoon, the landfall is expected between Nellore and Machilipatnam. Visuals that you can see of Barpatla, where it is being said the cyclone is going to make landfall. Wind speeds that you can see, if we were to put a number on it, it's about 100 to 90 kilometers per hour. And the gusts that follow or precede these super hefty winds can reach up to about 110 kilometers per hour. The waves, already you can see how tormenting the sounds of the waves are, the sea that we can see. Chennai, Nellore, Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh, Puducherry, Tamil Nadu, Odisha, Jharkhand, they're all reeling under the effects of the cyclone Mikjom. And even as you can see, the livestock, for them might be a little bit of a swim, but loss to property, loss to livestock, loss to lives in general is something that comes across every time a cyclone hits the eastern coast of the Indian subcontinent. Through not just knee-deep water, not just waist-deep water, but chest-deep water. The earth digger that you can see is parked behind, helping out in those rescue operations. Several cable lines that fell down, several trees that got uprooted. In Chennai alone, at least 8 deaths have been reported in rain-related incidents, and also an under-construction wall that collapsed on Sunday evening, Monday onwards as well. Several other reports of people succumbing to injuries and rain-related incidents in Chennai alone.
Samalah gali gitu. Tetap dulu ya. Boleh. Belum.
The earth diggers have been mobilized. These are areas that are essentially not as low-lying as the other ones, where pumping of the water has already begun in Chennai, the Greater Chennai Municipal Corporation and its water pumps. Let's not forget, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, they reel under hefty monsoons each year. These systems are well better prepared than the northern states to carry out evacuation processes or to deal with situations like extreme weather events when it comes to cyclones or when it comes to typhoons. But still, there's a lot of problem and apathy at hand, and that too in full public display. Normal streets that are thronged by thousands every day, prime junctions, prime forks, prime cross points, they've all been inundated. It's almost like a vacation for people, but less do they not know, the cyclone is going to make its landfall, and it's going to be difficult for people to reel or really understand what the cyclone brings with it. From Chennai, you move towards Andhra Pradesh, and the picture is in a stark contrast. In Chennai, you can still see people wading through chest-deep water, going about their days, trying to understand where they can essentially pick up their daily essentials and resources from. But in Andhra Pradesh, especially the coastal region, like the places that you're seeing, like Bapatla, where the cyclone is expected to make its landfall, the wind speeds, well, the pictures will tell you exactly what the wind speeds currently look like at the moment. There's a little dark shadow a luminous sort of an atmosphere that is above and about Andhra Pradesh. The expected time of landfall was any time between 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Still no news of the cyclone making its full-blown landfall between Nellore and Machilipatnam. Bapatla is that particular place where it is going to in fact make its landfall. Visuals from the coast of Chengalpattu, where you can see the waves, the tormenting atmosphere at the moment of the sea. The winds are gusting up to 100 kilometers per hour. People covering themselves, running for shelter. Trees are getting uprooted. Power lines have gone down. Power outages reported in many areas. This even has over 21 teams comprising of 800 plus NDRF and SDRF personnel. They've been deployed, mobilized on the grounds, especially to help people get out of low-lying areas. And for that, boats have been deployed, boats have been mobilized. These are makeshift fishermen boats. These are boats that are rafts that are incorporated and used, employed by the NDRF. Meanwhile, the water level, it's rising up. It's way above the danger mark, especially in Andhra Pradesh. Even as we're showcasing visuals coming across from Chengalpattu in Tamil Nadu. Various areas in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh and in Puducherry currently reeling under the effects of cyclone Mikjom. Visuals of Chennai Airport, ladies and gentlemen. Chennai Airport that was non-functional till about 9 a.m. this very morning after several of its runways got flooded. The operations took a massive hit. 100 plus trains that were running in the eastern coastal lines were cancelled, and more than 30 flights were cancelled as aviation sector took a massive hit. Chennai Airport hit the most. This even as we're picking up that the landfall process has begun near Bapatla. Basements, low-lying areas, ground floors of various residences, all completely flooded. Just a short while ago, you could see the cyclonic storm formation hitting the Vijayawada coast. And we were just showing you visuals of Bapatla as well, where the landfall is expected. A dark cloud over Bapatla in Andhra Pradesh as the landfall process begins near Bapatla. That cyclonic storm formation that we just showed you on the coast of Vijayawada, it has moved well over the land now. The landfall process has begun. When will Bapatla and the exact precise locations between Nellore and Machilipatnam be exactly in the center of this storm? That is yet to be ascertained, but the landfall process has begun. Well, let's hope for good sense to prevail, and let's hope that our preparedness in tackling the cyclone comes in handy. There's as little damage to life, property and livestock as possible. Shifting our focus here, ladies and gentlemen, talking about some political developments as well. Because after fissures that erupted in the INDIA bloc, the India bloc, with Trinamool Congress's Mamata Banerjee and JDU's Nitish Kumar expressing their inability to attend the December 6th meeting of the INDIA opposition bloc, the Congress has decided to shift the alliance meet to December 18th, while making sure that everybody can actually come and make it. Now, Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, he had dialed up its India alliance partners for a meet on the December 6th. Meanwhile, JDU's Nitish Kumar, He will not be attending the 6th December meet of the alliance, but will be sending in a representative nonetheless. So, not saying that JDU is going to be absent, Nitish Kumar is going to be absent from that particular INDIA meet. Meanwhile, Mamata Banerjee, West Bengal Chief Minister, she has claimed that she nor her party were informed and have other commitments on that particular day, on the 6th of December. She added that she would have loved to attend the meet if there was prior intimation about it. On the other hand, Sitaram Yechury, the CPM and CPIM, they've asked Rahul Gandhi not to contest from Wayanad and to contest from a constituency in the north. So, another set of fissure in the INDIA alliance. Some reactions from major stakeholders. Let's quickly listen into them.
देखिए, जो इंडिया अलायंस है सब इंटैक्ट है, सब लोग एक साथ हैं. जो भी कमियां हैं, जो भी दिक्कतें हैं, वो सब हम एक साथ करेंगे, क्योंकि हम इस कमिटमेंट से आए हैं, इस रिजॉल्व से आए हैं कि जो देश के सामने दिक्कतें हैं, जो ध्रुवीकरण की बात हो, फार्मर डिस्ट्रेस हो, महिलाओं के बढ़ते क्राइम्स हो, बेरोजगारी हो, इन्फ्लेशन हो, ये सारे मुद्दे देश की प्रायोरिटी है. संविधान को दरकिनार किया जा रहा है, डेमोक्रेसी के जो प्रिंसिपल्स हैं उसको खत्म किया जा रहा है. तो इन सब मुद्दों के इस कमिटमेंट से हम आए हैं, क्योंकि शॉर्ट नोटिस था, सिटिंग चीफ मिनिस्टर हैं, अपना शेड्यूल रीअरेंज नहीं कर पा रही हैं, तो वो हम लोग अपनी व्यवस्था देख लेंगे किस तरीके से जल्द मीटिंग हो और सारे जो है मुद्दे हैं उस पर चर्चा हो.
प्रोफेसर रामकुमार यादव हमारे साथ है. कल सर जो इंडिया गठबंधन की बैठक है उसका एजेंडा क्या रहेगा सर?
सर वो खड़गे साहब से पूछिए.
आप भी उस बैठक में जा रहे हैं अपनी पार्टी की तरफ से?
एजेंडा खड़गे साहब को बताएं, वही बताएंगे हमें.
उस बैठक में अखिलेश जी अहंकारी बता रहे हैं कांग्रेस को, ममता बनर्जी बोल रही है कि हम नहीं शामिल होंगे.
अरे सब शामिल होंगे,
लेकिन जो अहंकारी बताया अखिलेश जी ने कांग्रेस को,
अहंकारी तो है.
Well, it's been 2 months of that West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. Our segment on it comes up next. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being. Now, the war between Israel and Hamas has now entered its 60th day. It's been 2 months. Let's get you the latest update from the war front first on your screens. Take a look at this. Israeli forces pressed ahead with their air and ground bombardment of the southern Gaza Strip. That's something that we're picking up and taking a look at the moment. On the 60th day of the war, Israel has intensified its offensive in southern Gaza. 2 people were killed and a house was destroyed in an Israeli strike in Khan Yunis. That is something that we're picking up. Today, Turkey's Erdogan said that Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu will be tried as a war criminal, speaking to other Islamic nations. This even as over 1.7 million Palestinians are internally displaced in Gaza as the humanitarian crisis certainly widens. A total of 85 Israelis and 180 Palestinians have been released in the middle of that truce and the hostage swap deals that took place. Over 1,400 aid trucks have been let inside Gaza, still a minuscule number if you take a look at the humanitarian crisis, and the death toll that is constantly mounting. Nearly 16,000 people, including almost 6,500 children, have been killed in this war ever since the 7th of October. Now, Israeli airstrikes and artillery barrages have overwhelmed hospitals in Khan Yunis and Rafah that are coping with the surge in casualties. In Rafah alone, massive craters marked the aftermath of an Israeli airstrike, with residents extracting bodies of the young from the rubble. Despite being designated a quote-unquote safe area by the Israeli forces, residents have reported coming under attack, resulting in casualties. Israel contends it designates safe areas to protect Gazans, but the United Nations officials and Gazans argue that real-time adherence is challenging due to inconsistent internet access and unreliable electricity. Meanwhile, it's interesting to note what is going to happen in IDF's ground offensive phase 2. Now, Israel has readied a plan to flood Gazan tunnels with seawater in order to target Hamas and drive out its fighters from the tunnels. This, according to various reports, one that we picked up from the Wall Street Journal and also being reported by Times of Israel. Now, Israel has assembled a large system of pumps and has completed the setup of at least 5 pumps that is north of the Al-Shati refugee camp. These pumps are capable of moving thousands of cubic meters of water per hour, likely flooding the tunnels within weeks. It's not clear whether Israel is going to go ahead with this plan or not, still being considered according to various media reports doing the rounds, as IDF has also not made any official comment on this particular report. 5 pumps that have been stationed in the Al-Shati refugee camp. Is Israel seriously thinking of pumping water inside these tunnel shafts and flooding Hamas operatives out? Meanwhile, the bombardment continues. Early on Monday, an Israeli airstrike in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza resulted in 2 fatalities and the destruction of an entire residential block. Displaced residents who had relocated from the north seeking safety yet again find themselves without refuge. Southern Gaza, already densely populated, has seen schools and hospitals converted into shelters for civilians, further exacerbating the housing crisis. Moving on, Palestine TV broadcast footage depicting the aftermath of an Israeli operation in the occupied West Bank that resulted in the death of 2 Palestinians in a car and the apprehension of 2 other Palestinians. Now, the official Palestinian news agency Wafa, it reported the incident without promptly furnishing additional details about exactly what had happened. This even as Israeli forces launched a raid on Qalandia in West Bank on the 4th of December. The operation involved deployment of military vehicles and forces who threw stun grenades and conducted rooftop interventions in the area. Now, notably, no official statement by the military or police regarding the incident was furnished. Tensions have been rising in the West Bank area for the past 18 months, and things have gotten even more intense since the October 7th attack. Israeli forces have intensified the operations as there are more arrests and frequent raids causing clashes in the entirety of the area. And another video that has been put out. This video footage reveals Israeli soldiers that are engaged in a street altercation in Qalandia, West Bank. We earlier showed you how the 2 Palestinians were killed and other 2 were apprehended. Earlier, the official Palestinian news agency Wafa, it reported that Israeli forces during that particular West Bank raid killed the 2 Palestinians in the car and detained 2 others without immediate details. And in response to the Qalandia incident, an Israeli military spokesperson mentioned quote-unquote counter-terrorism activity is going to take place later on. Now, the Israeli army spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, he announced that the conflict with Hamas has quote-unquote entered a new phase. The military's objective is to pursue the armed group throughout the Gazan Strip whilst minimizing harm to civilians. According to Hagari, Hamas has initiated the conflict by breaching the mediated truce deal.
We are pursuing Hamas wherever Hamas is hiding, in the north and in the south. Every rocket launcher, weapons depot, command and control center, senior commander, underground infrastructure, and any hideout where our hostages may be held. Our war is against Hamas, not against the people of Gaza.
Now, in a White House briefing, Sullivan stated that Israel has identified a quote-unquote no-strike zone and is expected to refrain from targeting those areas. Now, Miller, in a separate briefing, mentioned a shift towards more targeted evacuations by Israeli forces, indicating an effort to minimize the civilian impact inside the Gaza Strip. Whilst acknowledging civilian casualties, Miller emphasized the challenge posed by Hamas embedding itself within civilian infrastructure, making it difficult to avoid collateral harm during military operations.
what Israel has done is it said, this is the area where we are going to conduct ground maneuver. Please, everybody move out of this area so that you're not going to be caught in the crossfire. They have also indicated that there are areas where there will be no strike zones. And in those zones, we do expect Israel to follow through on not striking.
Too early to make a definitive assessment. The Secretary was very clear about how we want to judge this based on results, not based on intent. We've seen a much more targeted request for evacuations here, where the Israeli Defense Forces have identified specific neighborhoods where they plan to conduct military operations and urged in advance of those operations the people in those neighborhoods to move, rather than telling an entire city or an entire region to vacate their homes. So that is an improvement on what's happened before. We think far too many people. I have not seen evidence that they are intentionally killing civilians. We believe that far too many civilians have been killed. But again, this goes back to the underlying problem of this entire situation, which is that Hamas has embedded itself inside civilians, inside civilian homes, inside mosques, in schools, in churches.
But still, the IDF's offensive continues. Israeli army released a video showcasing airstrikes aimed at Hezbollah launch posts, a military compound, and what they termed as terror infrastructure. Now, the strikes were reportedly in retaliation for mortar shelling from Lebanon that targeted the Zaratil area in northern Israel. The Israeli military confirmed conducting strikes on Hezbollah's launch sites, infrastructure, and a military compound, all in response to the mortar attacks launched by Lebanon. Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he said on Monday that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will likely be tried as a war criminal over Israel's ongoing offensive in the Gaza Strip. In a speech to a meeting of an Organization of Islamic Cooperation Committee, the OIC, in Istanbul, Erdogan said Netanyahu admitted that he is pursuing expansionist policies, adding that defending Gaza right now is the same as defending other Islamic cities in the region. I'd like to quote Recep Tayyip Erdogan over here. Beyond being a war criminal, Netanyahu, who is the butcher of Gaza right now, will be tried as the butcher of Gaza, just as Milosevic was tried. Listen in.
Avrupa'nın birçok ülkesinde göçmen nüfusun kahir ekseriyetini oluşturan Müslümanlar her gün bir başka yabancı düşmanı, ırkçı, ayrımcı, şu anda Gazze kasabı olan Netanyahu bir savaş suçlusu olmanın ötesinde kesinlikle Gazze kasabı olarak aynen Milosevic nasıl yargılandıysa bu da yargılanacaktır. 67 sınırlarında başkenti Kudüs olan bağımsız, egemen Gazze kasabı Netanyahu meselenin Gazze veya Ramallah olmadığını, yayılmacı hedefler peşinde koştuğunu kameralar önünde bizzat ifşa etti. Dolayısıyla bugün Gazze'yi ve Filistin'i savunmak demek, Kudüs'le birlikte Mekke'yi, Medine'yi, İstanbul'u savunmak, Şam'ı, Beyrut'u, Bağdat'ı ve diğer İslam beldelerini de savunmak demektir.
Now, Turkey, which supports a two-state solution to the decades-old conflict, has sharply criticized Israel over its campaign in Gaza. Meanwhile, moving on, Jerusalem's Santa Claus has attempted to bring Christmas cheer to a subdued Holy Land on the 4th of December, delivering a message of peace amidst the ongoing two-month conflict between Israel and Hamas. Take a look at some of those striking visuals on your screens. Isa Kasisiye, adorned as Santa Claus, rode a camel through olive groves overlooking the old city, proclaiming hope, love, and peace for Jerusalem.
Hope and peace in the Holy Land!
Now, this year's Christmas celebrations in the region are anticipated to be somber, overshadowed by the recent war in Gaza, which has resulted in nearly 16,000 casualties, as reported by the medical authorities in the enclave. Now, the conflict began when Israel launched an assault against Gaza's ruling Hamas Islamists in response to a cross-border attack on October 7th, where Hamas gunmen allegedly killed 1,200 people, seized 240 hostages, according to the Israeli tallies. And we're taking a look at some other top international and global developments as well. And first up, shifting our focus to the United States, where on Monday, the country charged former ambassador to Bolivia with spying for Cuba for over 40 years in what the Justice Department described as one of the highest reaching and longest lasting infiltrations of the United States government by a foreign agent.
The former U.S. ambassador to Bolivia, Victor Manuel Rocha, was charged on Monday with spying for Cuba for more than 40 years, in what the U.S. Justice Department described as one of the highest-reaching and longest-lasting infiltrations of the U.S. government by a foreign agent.
As detailed in the complaint, Rocha repeatedly referred to the United States as, quote, the enemy.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the former diplomat used his many positions within the government over the years to support Cuba's clandestine intelligence gathering mission against the United States.
To betray that trust by falsely pledging loyalty to the United States while serving a foreign power is a crime that will be met with the full force of the Justice Department.
According to the DOJ, Rocha, who served as U.S. ambassador to Bolivia from 2000 to 2002, and held a number of high-profile diplomatic positions at the State Department, was charged with committing multiple federal crimes, including acting as an illegal foreign agent and using a fraudulently obtained passport. He sought out and obtained positions, according to Garland, that would provide him with access to non-public information and the ability to affect U.S. foreign policy. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the government was still assessing the damage from Rocha's infiltration.
We will, in the coming days, weeks, months, work with our partners in the intelligence community to assess any long-term national security implications for this matter.
Rocha's wife and lawyer were filmed outside a Miami courthouse Monday, where the 73-year-old was set to appear before a federal judge after being arrested.
Now moving on, Sellafield, the United Kingdom's most hazardous nuclear site, has reportedly fallen victim to cyber attacks conducted by groups closely associated with Russia and China, according to an investigation by The Guardian. The shocking revelation suggests that senior staff at the nuclear waste and decommissioning facility have consistently concealed the breach and its potential consequences. The exact timeline of the security compromise remains uncertain, with indications that breaches were first detected around 2015, when experts identified sleeper malware embedded in Sellafield's computer networks. It remains unclear whether the malware has been completely eliminated, raising concerns about potential compromises in critical activities such as the movement of radioactive waste, monitoring for hazardous material leaks, and fire detection. Sources suggest that foreign hackers may have gained access to highly confidential material within the sprawling 6 square kilometer, which is also 2 square miles, the entire site on the Cumbrian coast, known as one of the world's most perilous nuclear facilities. The full extent of data loss and ongoing risks to systems has proven difficult to assess due to Sellafield's failure to promptly notify nuclear regulators about the breach. But the facility, built over 70 years ago and previously known as Windscale, played a role in plutonium production for nuclear weapons during the Cold War and continues to receive radioactive waste from various countries, including Italy and Sweden. Additionally, it houses emergency planning documents for use in the event of a foreign attack or national disaster. The site is heavily guarded by the armed police as well. And next, shifting our focus to Southeast Asia, where China has seen an uptick in respiratory illnesses and clusters of pneumonia in children. Doctors and public health researchers say there is no evidence for international alarm. Here's a report on what we know about the illness so far.
Hospitals in China are seeing a surge in respiratory illnesses and clusters of pneumonia in children. The recent outbreaks in the country, where COVID emerged in late 2019, have attracted the global spotlight, after the World Health Organization asked China for more detailed information last week. Here's what we know about the surge and why health experts are saying there's no evidence for international alarm. The rise in respiratory illnesses comes as China braces for its first full winter season since it lifted strict COVID-19 restrictions. Some social media users have posted photos of children receiving intravenous drips in hospital, while local media have posted videos of crowded hospitals. A Chinese health official said the outbreak is caused by known pathogens and that there is no sign of new infectious diseases. Data suggests the increase is linked to the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions, along with the circulation of known pathogens such as Mycoplasma pneumoniae. That's a common bacterial infection that typically affects younger children. Doctors in China and experts abroad are not too worried about the outbreaks, noting many other countries saw similar increases in respiratory diseases after easing pandemic measures. Chinese authorities say they will open more paediatric outpatient clinics to ensure more elderly people and children receive flu vaccines and encourage people to wear masks and wash their hands.
And take a look at this. An Albanian opposition member of parliament has disrupted a plenary session of the parliament, igniting smoke bombs and setting paper on fire, accusing the government of trying to silence the opposition. Democratic Party of Albanian MP Flamur Noka held the smoke bomb in the center of the parliament chamber where Prime Minister Edi Rama's Socialist Party has a majority. Just last month, prosecutors charged the de facto leader of the Democratic Party of Albania, Sali Berisha, a former prime minister, and his son-in-law with corruption over a land deal involving the grounds of a sports club. They accused him of using his influence as a premier from 2005 to 2009 to exert pressure for the conclusion of the privatization procedures in favor of others, including his daughter's husband. Moving on, at least 60 people have died in floods and landslides in northern Tanzania. That's in addition to the 85 injured in Manyara region. Search and rescue operations are underway amid fears that some bodies might be trapped in the mud.
More than 50 people have died in floods and landslides in northern Tanzania, the president's office said on Monday. That's in addition to 85 injured in the Manyara region. Search and rescue operations are underway, Manyara Region Commissioner Queen Sandiga told reporters, amid fears that some bodies might be trapped in the mud. President Samia Suluhu Hassan said that in the village of Katesh in Hanang district, 100 houses had been swallowed by a landslide.
I want to say that I have instructed that all efforts are directed towards rescuing those who were involved in this tragedy and to prevent more deaths.
Tanzania's disaster follows hundreds of deaths in Somalia and Kenya since seasonal rains began in October. A combination of the El Niño and Indian Ocean dipole weather phenomena has caused severe flooding that has also forced hundreds of thousands from their homes. Scientists say climate change is causing extreme weather events that are more intense and more frequent.
Meanwhile, tragedy struck in Indonesia as 23 climbers out of the 75 present were confirmed dead on Monday following eruption of the Merapi volcano in West Sumatra just a day earlier. According to Jody Haryawan, the spokesperson for the search and rescue team, all of them were local climbers.
Saat ini sama-sama kita nengok kondisinya udah malam.
At this time, we can see night is approaching, and we fear there may be further eruptions. So for the safety of the entire joint search team, we will stop and continue tomorrow morning.
Now, earlier on Monday, 49 climbers were evacuated from the area and many were undergoing treatment for burns. The evacuation of the deceased body from the volcano took 4 to 6 hours, emphasizing the challenging nature of the entire process. Now, the volcano Marapi, standing at 2,891 meters, had erupted on Sunday, spewing ash up to 3 kilometers into the sky. Merapi is among the most active volcanoes on Indonesia's Sumatra island. In the current year, it had erupted between January and February, projecting ash 75 meters to 1,000 meters from the summit point.
Eleven climbers have been found dead.
Well, moving towards Europe again, and in Paris, where a minister has come out and said that there is no plan B for the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Summer Olympic Games. Now this after a man that was armed with knife and hammer killed a German tourist and left 2 people wounded near the Eiffel Tower on Saturday. The 26-year-old suspect, a French national who was arrested after the attack, had pledged allegiance to Islamic State in a video recorded beforehand. Anti-terrorism prosecutor Jean-François Ricard also said the same in a press statement. Now, the attack occurred on the Quai de Grenelle, a spot that has been included in the plans for the opening ceremony. When the sports minister was asked if the government was mulling a change to its plan to hold the ceremony on the River Seine, with several 100,000 spectators expected along its banks amid the security threats, the minister said it was not being worked on by the government. Some 160 boats will set off on July 26 from Pont de Austerlitz for a 6-kilometer journey to Pont de Lena in an event.
On n'a pas un plan B, on a un plan A dans lequel il y a plusieurs plans bis, je dirais. C'est-à-dire qu'on a un certain nombre de variables d'ajustement. C'est le cas sur l'artistique, qui ne sera finalisé qu'au printemps avec des capacités à moduler, à réduire certains pans de cette programmation artistique. On a également en matière de jauge, là aussi, des variables d'ajustement. La jauge sera arrêtée au printemps. On peut la moduler. On a une variable d'ajustement liée au nombre de points de festivité qui seront autorisés autour de la zone et dans Paris.
And next up, take a look at this. Music app company farm Spotify. It will lay off around 1,500 employees, or about 17% of its headcount. The music streaming giant clarified on Monday. It is the 3rd round of layoffs at the company this year alone.
Spotify will lay off around 1,500 employees, or 17% of its headcount. The music streaming giant said Monday it was to bring down costs. It's the 3rd round of layoffs at the company this year. It let go 600 of its staff in January and 200 more in June. Spotify's CEO Daniel Ek sent a letter to employees explaining the company hired more in 2020 and 2021 due to the lower cost of capital. He further said the firm considered smaller reductions over the next 2 years, but he went with a larger cut now due to the gap between Spotify's financial goals and current operational costs. Spotify invested more than $1 billion to build up its podcast business, signing celebrities like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, as well as Kim Kardashian. It also expanded its market presence in most countries as it tries to reach 1 billion users by the next decade. It currently has 601 million users, up from 345 million at the end of 2020. The company swung to a profit in the 3rd quarter, helped by price hikes and its streaming service and subscriber growth in all regions. Job cuts have been a feature of this year for tech companies. Some have begun reducing their workforce again recently, with announcements coming from Amazon and Microsoft-owned LinkedIn.
And cruise ship operators are steaming ahead to a potentially strong 2024. Travel agents said travelers have booked heavily for the next year, even more than before the global health crisis.
Cruise ship operators are steaming ahead to a potentially strong 2024. US cruise operators and travel agents said travellers have booked heavily for next year, even more than before the global health crisis. Cruises are in demand as they are widely seen to be cheaper than land-based alternatives, and with such popularity, operators plan to hike prices in the coming months. One CEO described the market as extremely strong and picked out the high-end luxury part of the sector as doing a roaring trade. One industry watcher said bookings made in November for next year were about a fifth higher than in the same period in 2019. Royal Caribbean Group CEO Jason Liberty also said recently that demand was outpacing 2019 levels by a wide margin. Trade body Cruise Lines International Association said about 35.7 million passengers are expected to set sail next year, up from 31.5 million in 2023. The figure is about 6% more than in 2019. But there is one big catch for cruise lines as demand soars. Bookings could be held back due to a lack of capacity. Carnival CEO Josh Weinstein said earlier this year volumes for next year will fall back as the company could run out of inventory to sell. Smaller operators also say volumes are overflowing.
And for all those adventure and extreme sport enthusiasts out there, take a look at this next one. American daredevil Brian Grubb has combined wake skating and base jumping to pull off a fearless stunt in Dubai, scooting across an infinity pool at the top of a skyscraper before leaping off the building, as you can see, and cruising to the beach down below. Take a look. Moving on, China's foreign ministry said on Monday that it is reasonable and both legal for Chinese fishing boats to operate in the waters of Whitsun Reef in South China Sea. This came after the Philippines deployed vessels to monitor what it said was an illegal presence of Chinese boats. The Philippine Coast Guard said on Sunday it has monitored the illegal presence of more than 135 Chinese maritime militia vessels at the reef in South China Sea within the country's exclusive economic zone.
牛轭礁是中国南沙群岛的一部分，包括牛轭礁及其附近海域在内的南海相关海域，向来是中方渔船的重要作业区和避风点。中方渔船在该海域作业、避风合理合法，非方不应该说三道四。
Meanwhile, South Korea on Monday successfully conducted a flight of a solid fuel rocket carrying a satellite over the sea near Jeju Islands amid a growing space race with neighboring North Korea. It was the third successful test of the rocket's technology after two others in March and December last year, and involved technology developed at the state-run Agency for Defense Development and a booster and satellite produced by South Korea's Hanwha Systems. And the Christmas season has commenced in Croatia and Slovenia, with residents engaging in various outdoor activities. Take a look at this. In Zagreb, people visited the outdoor ice rink on Tomislavac Square for skating, and others enjoyed the Christmas market's food stands. Some Croatian origin tourists come to Zagreb for Christmas or Advent to experience the festive attractions as part of their traditions. Meanwhile, in Ljubljana, despite heavy snowfall, people gathered around the large-scale illuminated Christmas tree. Now, globally, for Christians, Advent signifies the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, marked by festive activities such as Christmas markets and illuminations. Moving on, Edinburgh Zoo visitors seized the opportunity to see the country's only 2 giant pandas before their 12-year stay concludes, and they head back to China. Access to the enclosure is going to be limited as the pandas Yangguang and Tiantian undergo preparations for their upcoming flight. Zookeepers have spent weeks acclimating the pandas to crates for their expected journey in early December. Originally arriving in Edinburgh back in the year 2011 under a 10-year agreement between the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland and the China Wildlife Conservation Association, their stay was later extended by 2 years due to the pandemic.
Just in case you drop.
「 Next up, like we promised, our full-blown segment on climate change. The world's largest iceberg, A23A, has begun moving for the first time in over 3 decades, according to scientists. Weighing nearly 1 trillion metric tons and spanning almost 4,000 square kilometers. Yes, exactly the one that you see on your screens. It's approximately 3 times the size of New York City. Now, take a look at this. Originating from West Antarctica's Filchner-Ronne ice shelf in 1986, the iceberg has been largely stationary in the Weddell Sea. Recent satellite images indicate it is now drifting past the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, propelled by strong winds and currents. The iceberg may enter the Antarctic circumpolar current and navigate Iceberg Alley in the Southern Ocean, presenting potential challenges for wildlife, shipping, and the surrounding ecosystem. Scientists intrigued by this rare movement are closely monitoring A23A's trajectory as well. And we have put out a sleek graphic for all of you to consume as well. Well, now take a look at this. In 1986, it carves off the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf but quickly becomes grounded on the sea floor. Later on, it moves towards the Atlantic Ocean as it loses grip and starts moving across the Weddell Sea. What does it entail for the Atlantic Ocean and the islands that are situated in that area if it circumvents the circumpolar current? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. A23A, that's the name of this big 4,000 square kilometer iceberg that's 3 times the size of New York City. It has started moving and has made its move in the last 30 years now. And moving on, COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber defended his commitment to the cause at the United Nations Climate Summit and affirmed his understanding and respect for climate science on the 4th of December, addressing criticism sparked by his November 21 comments on fossil fuel phase-out, saying that things were being taken out of context to undermine COP28's work. Al Jaber had reportedly said earlier that there is, and I quote, no science or no scenario out there that says that phase out of fossil fuels is what is going to achieve 1.5 degrees Celsius. Al Jaber emphasized the need to consider the full context rather than focusing on isolated remarks.
Let me say from the outset that everything this presidency has been working on, continues to work on, is focused on and centered around the science. I honestly think that there is some confusion out there and misrepresentation and misinterpretation. And I have repeatedly said in many occasions and in many different platforms that it is the science that have guided the principles of our strategy as COP28 presidency. And I've been very crystal clear about that, and I hope that this time I am clearer in getting this message across. The attempts to undermine the message that we keep repeating when it comes to how much we respect the science and how we ensured that the science is what dictates our strategy for our strategic imperatives and the objectives we want to deliver at COP28. One statement taken out of context with misrepresentation and misinterpretation that gets maximum coverage. Again, I respect facts, I respect numbers, and these are the facts on the ground. Unfortunately, I have called on parties many times to find common ground, build consensus, and come to me with language that will work with all parties.
Meanwhile, in Cambodia's sprawling Tonle Sap Lake, fishermen witness a distressing decline in fish stocks, imperiling the livelihoods of families reliant on its bounty, As the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia, it sustains around 1.3 million people residing along its shores. Climate change-induced extreme weather, dam construction disrupting ecosystems, wetland alterations and rampant overfishing pose grave threats to both sustenance and income.
For the past 30 years, Cambodian fisherman Siam Huat has been setting off on his boat every morning just as the sun rises over the expansive Tonle Sap Lake, all in the hope of a good catch from the fishing nets laid overnight. It's a routine that has not changed since he was 15. What has changed, though, is the size of his catch. In the face of climate change, pollution, and unpredictable weather patterns, Huat has seen his fish stock decline, and with it, his family's sole source of income.
Nature has changed unusually now. Some years it gets hot this month in the rainy season. Sometimes it gets hot and colder during the drought season. Sometimes there's rainfall in the wrong months, or it gets so hot that I can't go out to fish.
The Tonle Sap is the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia, with some 1.3 million people living on and around it. Experts say extreme weather brought by climate change, ecological disruption from dam building, wetland conversions, and overfishing threaten food supplies and livelihoods. Cambodian authorities are now scrambling to educate fishing communities on responsible farming practices, cutting water pollution, and how to switch to fish farming or aquaculture. Still, many are choosing to migrate away. Huat, who's a father of 5, wishes for a better life for his children.
I wish for my children to study a foreign language, but I'm concerned they might find it challenging. I don't want them to follow in my footsteps as fishermen because the fish population has decreased. It would be better for them to pursue alternative jobs that offer better prospects than fishing.
The decline in the daily catch is also impacting fish sellers at the local market. This 43-year-old fish vendor has, over the course of just 1 year, seen her typical daily income plunge from $25 to around 5 or 7. She says there are days when she struggles to buy rice or even cover the cost of the gasoline needed to get home. As leaders meet for the UN Climate Summit, pressure is ramping up on wealthy countries to fulfill promises to help developing nations like Cambodia, which are feeling the effects of the climate crisis. Sim Suchiata is the regional program manager at Oxfam.
We hope that COP28 will be taking into account the important part, which is building the capacity of the community to be resilient to change, and this could be done through some intervention that are very useful for them, like intervention that help improve their local livelihood, less reliant on the resource that currently impact by climate change. For Cambodian, fish and rice are the main staple for our diet. So we need the lake to be able to function. And all intervention need to put into place to make the lake, protect the lake and its ecosystem so that it can function.
They picked my husband. He was tortured there for 2 years.